Hello, hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome to Girls Night Live. We'll give just a couple minutes to get everyone on. We're so happy to have you here today. Especially excited for all that we're going to learn today. So welcome. Just get you all in here. I'm Isha Casagrande. I'm your hostess on Mondays. I love Mondays because it's Monday Fun Day, right? This is the day that we get to start our week, most of us, and get inspired. And I love it. How many of you love it? You can give a little wave. Now, I see some of you look like you're laying out in the sun. This is exactly what I wish I was doing right now. But doing this at the same time. So welcome to Girls Night Live. It is Monday. And again, I'm Isha Casagrande, your workshop host today. And we are so excited to be coming to you from all over. I'm actually in San Diego, California, and our guest today is coming to you from Indiana. So excited for what we're about to learn. I'll tell you a little bit about our Jaime Gordon. She's the Unstuckologist. She's professionally trained transformational life coach, creator of Joy Bootcamp, the Parent Playbook and Anxiety Toolbox for Children, head Susie School coach, and Enneagram skit maker. She partners with individuals and groups to clarify their visions, break through barriers, and achieve the longings of their hearts in life, relationship, and business. Please give a warm welcome to Jaime Gordon.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here. I'm really excited to share a little bit about the Enneagram, and I'm hoping that you're going to leave with something practical that you can apply immediately in your life. So I would love to share a little bit about the Enneagram. Who is excited? I'm wondering how many of you actually know what the Enneagram is, and if you know what your personality type is, what your actual number is. I am going to share my screen so I can explain with visuals, because I find it very helpful to look at something when I'm learning something. I don't know about you. I am a visual learner. All right, let's just move this out of here. You're probably wondering, what the heck is this random drawing doing here? The Enneagram is complex. It's very detailed. This picture, however, is not. This picture was a picture that they did when my son, who's now 20, was getting ready to go to kindergarten. The preschool teacher or the kindergarten that's having you come in makes you draw a picture, and they count how many features are on the picture to tell whether or not you're ready for kindergarten. So my son, look, he's got several features. He's got arms, legs, a body, a face. That's you can tell it's a person, but it's not, say, like my daughter, when she went, the thing had ears, eyelashes on the eyes, fingers, high heels, and we're talking the whole nine. Today, you're going to get my son's drawing of the Enneagram. That's what you're going to get. You're going to get a basic understanding. And my hope for you is that you actually get something that you can immediately apply to your life. So you're getting the sun drawing version of the Enneagram. It'll be missing the hands and the feet, and it certainly will have no dangly earrings, but it will give you a good start in understanding what the Enneagram it is. And more importantly, it'll give you some insight into an area to focus your growth on. And why is that important, right? Why do we even like personality models to start with? Because when we are suffering, and I think it's fair to say that a lot of us have gone through seasons of suffering, and you might currently still be in that space right now. It feels like it'll never end. And we don't realize that we actually have more power than we think. And part of what gives us our power is a great understanding of who we are. And I want you to think that growth isn't about being happy all the time. It's about transformation. But we cannot transform what we can't see. And so, unlike other personality models, the reason why the Enneagram has grown in so much popularity in recent years is because it doesn't just give you the shiny bits about your personality and your strengths and what you're good at. It actually gives you kind of like the seedy underbelly of your personality. It gives you access to your blind spots. So I am going to show you, I don't know what I just did. Hopefully that didn't mess up your view here. This is the Enneagram diagram. You probably have seen that. And I want you to think the Enneagram is a personality model. It's not perfect, but it's useful. And when we talk about personality, I think it's important to say that personality isn't your identity. It's not actually who you are. Your personality is developed as a child, as a way to get your needs met, as a way for you to feel loved. And so when you think about your personality, it is something about what you perceived as a child and kind of what you made, what you needed to be to get your needs met, which is why the same kid, like, siblings could all have different personalities. The situations are the same, but how we perceive it is different. And so our personalities are actually going to be different based on what we think we need, how we need to protect ourselves to get our needs met. So according to the Enneagram, there are 9 basic personality types. I'm going to call them shields, right? Because they're there to protect us and to get our needs met. And each one has a wounding message, a core fear, and a core desire. So I'm going to briefly discuss each type and give you like a few questions to see if you can help whittle down what you think your type might be. And there's 2 purposes in this. One, learning about your type on the Enneagram is a literal cheat sheet to awareness. Awareness is the beginning of transformation. And so after I explain kind of the types, I'm going to give you kind of just a character quality for each type to work to develop, to work on. That would be resourceful. So it's like, oh, cool, I'm in a type 1. Now what? Right? I'm going to give you something that you can go home and start working on. The second reason you want to learn about the Enneagram is that once you know your type, you can be just tenacious and compassionate about when we show up and observe some of the unhealthy tendencies of your type and work to transform them. It's just about bringing us into balance. So I'm going to give you an example for each. Now, remember, these diagrams, you can actually get them on Etsy. That's what I did. If you Google Enneagram Blueprint, this is what will pop up. I'm going to explain the kindergarten drawing, not the complex, Mona Lisa of the Enneagram. And I'm going to give you an example. So we're going to use messy house, clean house. Why you might have a messy house or why you might have a clean house with your type. So I want you to think like, okay, take a little stock. Am I a messy house person? Am I a clean house person? And I want you to think about why it is. So like you can even drop it in the chat. Like, you don't even have to tell us if you're messy or clean, just the reason why you prefer your house to be messy or clean. And maybe not even prefer, because I think we all prefer that our house be magically cleaned, but why it actually is one or the other, the reasons behind it. Okay. So I want you to think like, what's the motive behind this behavior? Because a lot of times, and if you watch my skits on Instagram, I basically give you I put you all in a little box, like each number is a certain thing. You can have the same behavior, but what gives you your Enneagram type is the motivation. So here with the type 1 that we're looking at is called the reformer. Their desire is to be good, and they fear being evil or corrupt. So messy house, clean house time. If I have a messy house and I'm a type 1, it might be because if it can't be done perfectly, then it'll be wrong. And that might paralyze me. Or I might go to put something away and notice that a drawer needs to be cleaned out. Well, then it would be wrong for me to put that in there. So it's going to sit on top until I have a time to put it away the right way. So things would accumulate. I would have a messy house as a type 1. Now, why would I have a clean house? And I'd say by and large, a lot of type 1s have clean homes, but not all. It's because it would be wrong. It would occur to them as wrong to have a messy home. They also often have a clean home because they experience a lot of anger, and cleaning soothes the anger for a 1. Not in general, I can't put everyone into a box, but there is often a the fury of cleaning sometimes soothes the one. All right. If there's any questions, feel free to put them in the box, and Isha, you can jump in anytime. The type 2 of the Enneagram is the helper. They desire to be loved. They fear being unloved or unneeded, and they generally have a fear of being a burden. Now, messy house, clean house time. If you said you had a messy house, and the reason is because you may feel like the caring and loving others leaves little time to keep your house up, or keeping a clean house may make others in the home unloved, meaning oh, I can't, they want to play, and my kid wants me to play with me, so I can't clean the house because they'll feel unloved. So I want to do that. Or sometimes, this is the kind of, remember the CD underbelly. So sometimes a type 2 will have a messy house as a way to prove how needed they are. See what would happen if I wasn't here, the house would fall apart, right? So you might have that messy house, clean house. Now, why would a type 2 have a clean house? As a way to love others. They may want their home to be just hospitable. They want people to feel welcomed in their home. Nobody would feel uncomfortable, which would be very uncomfortable for a type 2 to have somebody uncomfortable in their home. Or to prove that they are needed. That to not feel like a burden. Is this computing with anyone? Is anyone actually going oh, that's why I actually clean my house? Not because I actually care if it's clean. It's because I don't want to feel like a burden, or because I feel like it would be wrong to have a messy house.
We do have a couple comments in chat. Kelly Ryan says, my reasons are messy, no energy or time to clean. And Holly's is probably relatable. My husband travels. When he's out of town, it's medium clean when he's in town. When he's out of town, it is messy with no attempts to clean.
Awesome. Okay. So I want you to take your reasons and actually go a layer deeper, because I think all of us can relate to that it requires a ton of energy to keep a house up, or that there's not enough bandwidth or resource of time to keep up with it. But I want you to really kind of get curious about, what is it about when my house is messy that it bugs me? Or if it's clean, why do I really like it? Or vice versa. Try to go a little bit deeper, and it'll actually cue you into what's driving the behavior. Because everything we do kind of works like dominoes. We have a belief that brings us an emotion, that brings us an action, and then brings us a result. The clean or messy house is just the result. It's the going backwards that actually will show us what our motivation actually is. Okay, so let's go to type 3. Let's see here. Type 3 is the achiever. They desire to feel worthy and valuable. Their greatest fear is to feel unworthy, to not have worth. And they often mistake their value as a human as what they do, what they produce versus who they actually are. So if you're at the end of the day and you've got a to-do list that you didn't go, mark that pen through, and you feel like I'm actually a worthless human, that might be a sign that you're an Enneagram 3 versus I didn't do the thing, without it meaning I'm garbage, right? I didn't do the thing. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't do that thing. I'll have to do it tomorrow. That stinks. Versus actually my worth as a human is now being challenged. So a messy house, clean house. A type 3 would have a messy house because they might be putting their eggs in the basket that most brings them the sense of accomplishment and productivity. So if no one is seeing their home, then they may not actually think of it as a worthy place to put their energy. They will put their energy, say at work, where they're going to have a sense of accomplishment, where other people will see it, and they'll be able to recognize oh, look at what a good job you did. And they interpret that as value for myself. Another thing is that when a 3 gets super stressed out, this is another thing we don't have time to go into greatly, but all of your types will move to a different numbers unhealthy traits. So if you look at this chart, there is the healthy and unhealthy traits of each number. And when you're stressed, it'll also tell you where you go in stress. So a 3, when they're stressed, will go to the unhealthy side of 9, which means you might be busy, do all the things, and then just completely shut down. So when a 3 gets super overwhelmed, they generally will sit their butt down on the couch and do absolutely nothing. It's 100 miles per hour or nothing at all. So a clean house, they would have clean house because it's an extension of how they want other people to view them. Appearances are super important to a 3. They are generally someone who will be put together when you see them, and it gives them a sense of worth and accomplishment. So the type 4 is the individualist or the artist, the kind of like interchangeable terms. They desire to be truly seen and appreciated. They want to belong, but fear that they actually, that they don't have an identity. Like them being called like, oh, you're like everybody else would feel like a dagger in the heart. They really strive to be unique. It's like this blessing and curse. They feel unique. And then that uniqueness doesn't really make them feel like they belong. And when they don't belong, they start to feel like, I don't even know who I am. So it can be a very confusing kind of like I belong, I don't belong situation. So why they would have a messy house is because their house for them is an extension of their expression of themselves. Often a type 4 will express themselves through their clothing, through their art, through their makeup, their hair. They want to be seen as unique and special, whether that is messy or clean. So it can go either way. They're less worried about it being right or wrong and more concerned with it being seen as unique and not one of the crowd, which maybe be seen like whether it's clean or not clean, doesn't really matter. But often they will have a messy home because being tied down to the normal chores feels so mundane and so, what's the point? They would rather be creating something that moves their spirit versus emptying the dishwasher. I'm going to pause there and see if there's any questions, because I know that there's so much of the Enneagram and I'm giving you like little bits.
So can you see anything in the chat here? We do have a couple questions. We had a few people talking about what their numbers were. We have Dawn from Facebook asking, should you take an Enneagram test online to get your accurate number?
Okay, so that's a great question. You can absolutely, you could take a test. However, if you don't really know why you do something, the test isn't going to be a super accurate reflection of your number. The good, better, best. Good is you Google a couple free tests and you compare your answers. Better. I personally like the test on EnneagramInstitute.com. It's $12. And I would take both of the tests that they offer. One is about instinctual types and one is about your number. Best is that you learn about the Enneagram types, which there's a ton of free resources. And I also love the Road Back to You by Ian Cron because it is a very easy to read, basic, so fun, gives you examples of what it looks like for different personalities. That's where I would go. I see another question is, let's see, is this something that evolves from childhood or is it pretty unmalleable? Okay, so yes, you develop it as a child based on how the world occurs to you, a wounding message that you get. So if you are a type 1, you might get the wounding message that it's not okay to make mistakes. And so if you believe that it's not okay to make mistakes, you will start to try to make yourself good and have a very strong sense of right or wrong in order to remember that shield that you put up your personality to get your needs met. And so with each of the personality traits, there is kind of like an inception moment, and it's usually not once, it's usually repetitive, and how you absorb information. And remember, you could be sitting right next to, your sibling, and you would have 2 different personality traits. It's how it occurs to our brain. And that part's a little bit more about temperament. So your personality trait, once you have it, it's yours. Can trauma affect it? Yes, but generally you are your number. The point is for you to learn your number, how to leverage your number, grow in your number so you have access to all of the character traits in that whole diagram. Okay, so let's move on. Let's see if this will actually play.
C2, right here. One carry-on and one personal item. That's clearly too big to be a personal item. Oh, wait, you dropped it. Oh, come on. That flight's going to Paris. Oh, that's where we should be going. Got your makeup. We can put a freaking man on the moon, but we can't figure out how to make lines efficient for getting on planes.
All right. I thought you all needed a little break to show you what different personality traits might look like doing the same exact thing. Notice that there's the things that we do, they are coming from a motivation to get what we want and avoid what we fear. So let's move on to the type 5 of the Enneagram. The type 5 is the investigator. They desire to be capable and competent. They fear greatly being inadequate or incompetent and embarrassed. Why they would have a messy house is they may collect and hoard information or items of value. They can get distracted into like, oh, I'm going to fix that because it's valuable. I don't want to get rid of it. Or I'm going to keep this because there's scarcity with a 5 that they're going to, be left looking incompetent, or that they're going to be irresponsible and be embarrassed. So for type 5, it might be triggering to clean or purge because it would trigger that feeling of incompetence. Now, why they might have a clean house, on the flip side, it might occur to them that to not take care of their belongings may cost them in the long run. So they may be tidy and balance, keeping up with the letting go and realizing that excess may be costing them in the long run. So in that case, cleaning would trigger a feeling of competence. So do you see how it occurs to them? The different behavior, but it's really about trying to feel that competence. So a type 6 is the loyalist. They desire security, support, and guidance. They fear abandonment. They're actually afraid of fear, and they hate uncertainty. So why would someone that's a type 6 have a messy home? Because they're overthinking. They sometimes get kind of an analysis paralysis. They think in terms of like scenario A, B, C, and D, not just scenario A. They might be thinking, oh, what if I need this? So they might feel like they need to have a redundancy of something. I don't just need one pair of scissors. I need 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's like, what if I lose that one? Then I need this, right? So there might be a little bit of clutter and overwhelm. And when they're overwhelmed, generally, I think all of us, when we're overwhelmed, feel a sense of uncertainty. And remember, that's their greatest fear. Why a type 6 would have a clean house? Because they feel safer, they feel secure, they feel more prepared for what life is going to throw them if their home is clean. It gives them a sense of security. Same type, 2 different outcomes, but driven by the same thing. A type 7 is the enthusiast. They are like happy to be happy. They really long to be satisfied, content, but they want to avoid pain, disappointment, being limited or deprived. They would feel like being trapped by emotional pain would be the worst case, like worst day ever. So why they would have a messy home? Because they view maintaining household chores and schedules as being tied down. They feel more deprived of life experiences when they have to stop and tidy up. They just like, so boring. I just can't even, right? And they're super spontaneous. And so if they, today's the day I'm going to do this, and then a friend calls, they might go and do the thing with a friend. Now, why would a type 7 have a clean home? Well, because they feel like having a messy home would actually trap them in the unhappy feelings. Like if they let it all pile up, then they would feel like that's making me feel unhappy, and I don't like that. So it might actually be the flip side, right? That not being able to find something would cause them emotional pain. So cleaning their home is the best path for them to feel safe and secure in their home, and that they're not going to miss out on something in the future. The type 8, the challenger, desires to be in control, protect themselves, and to not be vulnerable. They fear being weak, vulnerable, controlled, manipulated, taken advantage by other people. That is their fear. Why would a type 8 have a messy home? Well, because they might be putting their energy into other areas. A type 8 is a go-getter, an aggressive type. So when they want something, they go for it. Where they lack is actually asking for help. And so they put energy into the areas they feel like they must do it to get it done effectively. Like, if I'm going to get it done, like, it's going to be me, nobody else can do it, I'm just going to do it. I'm efficient. They're jacking around. I can do it better myself. Now, why would they have a clean house? Perhaps maybe for the same thing. Having a messy house would be seen as being inefficient. It would leave them feeling vulnerable in some way. And so then they would have a clean home. Okay, last type, type 9. I'm a type 9. I'm a peacemaker. The type 9s desire peace, stability, and they fear conflict. They fear loss of separation. And what that really looks like is loss of connection. So if they feel like conflict is going to bring me separation from somebody or something, then they don't want to bring the conflict because they want to keep in that harmony. Now, why would a type 9 have a messy home? A couple of reasons. The conflict of the physical energy. Type 9 actually has the lowest amount of energy of all the personality types. And that's because it's not just boundaried one way. Like, I don't want what's going on out here to get in here, or the other way around. I don't want what's in here to get out here, which is most other personality types. 9s are actually boundaried both ways, meaning I don't want you to know what's going on in here. That's going to cause conflict. And I also don't want what's going on out here to cause conflict. And so it requires double the energy. So the house can be messy because of that. Also, they lose stamina quickly because they're working to avoid conflict. They may not be good at delegating, asking for questions or help, or requiring the help. Why would they have a clean home? Because the mess of the home would cause conflict. A clean home would relieve the conflict. The conflict of the home might run smoother if I have a clean home. So same motivators, 2 different outcomes. How do I use this information? 1, learn about your type. It is a cheat sheet for your awareness. In order to transform or change anything in your life, you have to become aware of it, right? Like, I know that I know how to do a cartwheel. I mean, are you impressed that I can kind of do a cartwheel still? I know what I don't know. I know I don't know how to speak Mandarin, right? I'm very aware of that. But it's the things that we don't know. That's the part that when we can learn those things, that's how we grow. If we don't know that what we're actually, that we are not asking for help because we don't want to feel like a burden, like, we can't shift it. If I don't know that my fear of vulnerability is what's getting in between me and a relationship that I actually want, I can't shift it. So learn your type so that you can transform it. Be tenacious and compassionate with your tendencies so you can work to transform them. There is just bringing it into balance, right? We know that we're going to still have those core fears. We know we're going to still have the core desires, and we know that there's a lot of weaknesses that we're maybe blind to. The Enneagram gives you a really good idea of what those might be. The next thing is to just work towards one thing for each type. And I'm going to give you that in the next slide. I'm going to give you 1 character trait for each type. So if you think you know what your number is, you can just look at that and go like, okay, that might be an area that's maybe a little bit weak for me. And I can develop it in a new way. It's not that you don't have it. It's just that maybe it's just like, I have a bicep, but the bicep could be really weak or it could be really strong. And I'm just going to point out an area that you might want to strengthen. The other thing is to remember that you're human and your tendencies will always be your tendency. Your Enneagram number is always going to be your Enneagram number, but you can actually learn to have those things more than they have you. Like I used to be super anxious and it was running me. Now I've learned some stuff and I actually have I have it way more than it has me. And that's really cool. So where do you even start? Each of these, your types, if you're a type 1, can you imagine if everything doesn't have to be right or wrong and you could tap into some compassion? Type 2, if you could actually tap into asking for people's needs, which I know requires so much humility and a lot of bravery. Type 3, if you could actually show people your not so shiny side and to not worry about, like producing, but actually being loved for who you actually are, how healing that would be. And if you're 4, working on your sense of connection and belonging. I've watched a lot of type 4s in my life, especially teenage 4s as they're developing, and I watch them exclude themselves under the illusion that they're being left out. Type 5s working on the abundance and creativity that there is enough. Type 6 to work on trust and creativity for a 6, because your creativity, actually, you're a very creative person. It's just that your creativity is working towards all of the worst case scenarios, working at creativity that is for your good, which there's a whole module in my Joy Bootcamp that shows you how to do that. If you're a type 7, working on diligence and responsibility, knowing that it's actually the thing that's going to bring you more of what you want, even though you're running away from some of those things that feel boring and responsible and like feels like death, they're actually the things that are going to bring you the most life. If you're a type 8, the vulnerability of letting people in and not having to control and feeling safe only comes when you are willing to be vulnerable and to develop that muscle. And 9, I think working on diligence is one of the most resourceful things that you can do. And I want you to think that the word diligence actually means joy in work. If you trace the word back, joy in work. And part of your work is entering into some conflict. So I just want to let you know that in 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be opening up my Joy Bootcamp. I only do it 2 times a year, and it is a course. And there's even some live Q&A Zooms and workbooks where you get to actually do this. Doesn't matter what your number is. And I teach you so many different steps that will help you develop this. So I actually also added a Christmas bonus, not a Christmas, holiday, harmony in the holidays, because I know that this is a time where it's supposed to be magical, supposed to be jolly, and a lot of us aren't feeling it. And we're looking at it at the season with some dread. And I've learned some stuff that I feel like I remember like learning this stuff, like, why does nobody give you the keys to the kingdom? They're out there. Like they're out there. And why do you have to have $1 million to get them? I don't get it. So Joy Bootcamp is going to be coming Black Friday if you're interested in that. Does anybody have any questions for me? Let's see here. Have you seen a complete change in Enneagram with major illness or injury, such as a stroke or traumatic brain injury? Okay, so when you have a major, say, accident, it can actually trigger some of the trauma that you already have stored. And so you might be dealing with some trauma that was repressed. Another thing is that anytime that we have trauma, it is like a limbic attachment, and that can affect your personality. So, but I do think that all of these personality, right, is just kind of the analogy is like acorn. It's the acorn shell. We're actually the oak. The personality, like what we're trying to change, is really about just releasing this idea of who we think we are and finding healing, right? And realizing we're actually the oak, but we just like to package ourselves into a little acorn. Let's see. What does Joy Bootcamp cost? It's $199. And you can check out my website. There's tons of reviews. I promise you the value is 10 times that. This is for everybody. is what I teach similar to astrology? Not at all. It actually has zero to do with astrology. It's the little like diagram is actually just showing the relationship between, because those little lines are actually the growth and stress paths that your number undergoes. So when you're stressed, so like I'm a 9, and when I'm stressed, I will move to the unhealthy side of a 6, which means a type 9 personality will get very anxious when they are stressed, right? But for say a type 3, their stress number would be 9. So they go from super productive to shutting it all down into the low side of a 9. So those lines are actually just showing you where your personality moves under stress and when you're in a place of growth. So like a type 1 will be, I don't know if you know any type 1s, they're usually like very like structured and very reserved. And when they go on vacation and they don't feel like they need to be doing something, they actually let loose and have fun. They actually move to the high side of a 7, and they're a hoot. Okay, let's see. What are the wing numbers? So your wing, this is a very big misconception that people have. When you take a test and it gives you your like the percentages of your number, most people assume that the number you test second in is your wing. It's not. I want you to think like a bird, right? The wings are on the side of the bird, right? Like here's my wings. So if you look at this little diagram, the diagram shows you what wings are your options. So at 9, at the top of the chart, my wing choices are 1 and 8. So I could be 9 wing 1, 9 wing 8. Same. So I want you to think of like, you might use one of your wings a whole lot. You may not use either of your wings very much, or you might use both of them. And the point is you want to be able to access both of those and use them. How difficult is it to coach someone who has spent years without experiencing joy? I love it, because I find that the people who have spent years without joy is because they are believing things that when questioned just break apart. Think of it like just like if chains were to like unlock and fall off. Now the thing is like you've had a lot of practice thinking those things and believing those things and acting in those things, that it's so easy to just like put the chains back on. So I want you to think most of us are living to prevent pain and discomfort. We're not actually working to produce the life that we want. And when you change your focus to producing what you want, your brain will actually work for that versus working to just have nothing bad happen. Well, guess what happens? The difference between I don't want to get a divorce. My brain goes, okay, I don't want to get a divorce. I want an amazingly intimate romance marriage. Do you see how they're two different things and my approaches are going to be vastly different? So when you think about joy, if I'm just trying to not be anxious, or if I'm trying to build trust for myself, this gives my brain something to do other than spin in the anxiety. Can you keep coming back to the material on the bootcamp? Yes, it is lifetime. And guess what? Which means every time I add a new module, like I just am adding a holiday harmony module, you'll get that too. You get the workbook. Like I want you to use it and use it and use it and use it. Yeah. So even if you're a procrastinator, I got you. All right. I think that was all the basic questions. So if you have any more questions, come over to my Instagram at Unstuckologist and you can shoot me a DM. And if you want to join my email list, then you will find out when Joy Bootcamp it'll be available on Black Friday, but you'll have to jump on it because it closes. It's a limited open and close for the Joy Bootcamp. All right, fellas, this was so much fun. Come ask me your questions over on Instagram. This has been the best. Thank you, Isha, for having me here.
Jamie, thank you so much. We so appreciate such fascinating information. I think we'll all be going to run and do a test and see what number we fall into, because you might think you have a couple of them, right? Very excited to follow you and check